In this video, I wanted to talk about what I think are the most valuable skills to become a software engineer. Because if on one side you may think that knowing a certain technology super well or knowing all about algorithms and architecture, that's really important to become an experienced software engineer because in the end it's gonna be part of your workflow. But in my experience, what it really helped me to get through a job to another has been to be able to adapt to a new technology and a new context and be willing to learn about the tools that the specific project needed or starting to learn a new language from scratch. I think that is really true that if you decide to go in the path of software engineering, your study time will never be over because tech is known for being very fast-paced, and you constantly need to learn new things because what is the standard today may not be the standard tomorrow. And therefore, if you just be stuck in one technology, in one thing, you may become outdated. So even if it may seem a bit dramatic as a concept, I think it is actually a good challenge because it pushes you to always keep motivated to study new things, try new things. So if you decide to go with this field, you may never get bored, I guess, more than other normal jobs where you need just to learn about the office tools and that's it. But if on the other hand you want to learn new things, I think it will be the perfect match for you. To give an example about this, in my experience, it has been that during my studies, they taught us about software engineering concepts like design partners, object-oriented programming, all about Java language. So what I use in my projects in university was mostly Java and then even a bit of C++. But basically when I finished my studies, the most proficient language that I had was Java. And therefore my first job was actually based on Java. We were using a IBM framework called Web Service Commerce. So the backend part was made in Java, but even there, what I had to do was vastly different. There were so many more tasks that didn't involve any concept of Java language that I learned during my studies. For instance, I had to do as well some front-end development, so I learned JavaScript, the basic of HTML, CSS, and also jQuery. And then I had to do some tasks about DPA, performance tests with certain tools. So in the end, the amount of things that I needed to learn to be proficient at my job was much more than just knowing one single language. Even if it is already a lot of what I've learned in those 2 years to be able to adapt to the context in which I was working with. When I decided to change job, when I arrived there, my knowledge of Java was not really important because when I got hired in this new position, I had to work with C++ and then Python. So even though C++, I knew a little bit about the syntax and some concepts, Python was completely new for me. Then, of course, Python is a much easier language to learn. Let's say it's more beginner friendly compared to C++, and therefore I became kind of proficient with Python during my period there. But again, it was a completely new and different context compared to before. But even in this case, what really mattered was my ability to adapt to this new context and learn the new technologies that they were using. I noticed that in many big companies where I worked with, they often use specific tools or there is some specific business logic that it doesn't matter if you are like a 20 years experienced C++ developer, because what it really matters is the business logic that is used there. So if you know how the application works, where to find the things, that counts much more than knowing all the tricks and history of a specific language. Sometimes you don't really care that you are most experienced programmer in that language or that you know all the good design pattern to use in the right context, because often writing extremely clean and perfect code will requires a lot of time. And if you need to understand the business side of things, so not the programmer side of things, that is something that is also really important to become a good software engineer, is to understand that the business wants a result and often wants the results fast. So you need to be able to compromise between having the perfectly clean code and having the business results in a specific amount of time. That can be a deadline, but it can be also your own goal if you want to achieve certain results in a certain amount of time. This is specifically true if you're working on your own project, because in that case you are the one giving you the deadline, you are the one deciding when to stop to do certain things. Because you need to also think about this, like if you want to spend all this time making the perfect application with the perfect code, but it's gonna be really relevant in 1 or 2 years from now, because now you're using a certain version of the programming language, there is a certain standard, but with the fast-paced environment that is IT, maybe in 1 or 2 years, what you're doing now is gonna be deprecated. So all this mega effort that you did may be not so relevant in the future. Maybe the certain library that you're using will be replaced by a new and most efficient one. So in this case, it's more important to try to give the best solution within a reasonable amount of effort and time. So I think that working on your own projects, even if it's just for a hobby or just in your free time to try a new framework, is actually a very good thing, because in this case you're forcing yourself to adapt to a new context where you are a bit uncomfortable of using, and exercise yourself to learn the new tricks for this new tool or new framework, and it's gonna be very helpful in the future of your career, or also if you want to continue doing a real project in the future. So to recap a bit, I think that it's not important to become the master and the most expert person in a specific programming language. What's important is to be able to adapt and to learn about the technologies and tools that you need for a specific project, and become good enough to achieve those results that are needed. So be able to carry on your tasks. Of course, with time you become more autonomous, but when you just get started, it's okay to just ask questions to people that knows more than you. In this way you can speed up your learning as well. And you need to try to put the business hat and understanding what is really important for the specific project, because being able to prioritize your time and your task is another very important skill you want to become proficient with, because it's gonna be helpful to speed up your career as well. And also, if you want at some point to work on your own projects, it's even more important, because you're gonna be the one putting the deadlines, you're gonna be the one putting the priority on every aspect of the project, and therefore you need to become able to understand what's really important, where to focus on, and what can be actually discarded or put aside in order to be able to deploy the things that you really need to deploy and make finally your project successful. So let me know what you think about this. This is my opinion in my experience in working now more than 9 years in software engineering, but we are always here to learn, and if you have something to share, I will be happy to read about your experiences. So thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next video.